Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with allthingsbbq.com, and this is smoked tri-tip. Well, tri-tip is a fantastic piece of beef. We often grill up a tri-tip medium rare, slice it thin. It's great on tacos, it's great on sandwiches. But today what we're gonna be doing is smoking this thing like a brisket. I'm talking about smoking it past 210 degrees until it just chops and falls apart for barbecue sandwiches. With that fat cap intact on top and the right amount of love and care and attention, this thing is super juicy and delicious. Today we're gonna be cooking on the Kamado Joe Classic 3 charcoal ceramic grill, and we gotta get that charcoal fire going early. This is sort of a medium smoke time. We're looking at probably about 4 hours today. So the big block charcoal is ideal. Nice big chunks, they burn slowly. You can throw some wood in there and get that extra aroma going. But before we can even trim these things up, we got to get the charcoal going. So we're gonna fill up our basket with the big block charcoal here. We get this lit up and just get it going. What we're cooking with today are some Creekstone Farms Master Chef Prime Tri-Tip roasts. These are about 3 pounds a piece. So shout out to Creekstone for sending these over. If you guys haven't had any Creekstone Prime beef yet, go check it out. It's delicious. We appreciate you guys. These things look really nice already. Now we've got some tri-tips with the fat cap on, which we really want to work with today. The only cleaning up we need to do maybe on this opposite side is where I see some of this silver skin. And if there's any of that right near the surface, I'll take it off. If there's any of that hiding underneath that fat cap, I'm not gonna worry about it today because I want that extra fat on the surface of these roasts for this long smoke. So that's what we're looking to clean up, just a little bit of silver skin. On the opposite side here on the fat cap, I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of score this fat cap so we can make sure we rub some seasoning down into it. And that's really all there is to it. Now before we get to seasoning the outside of the tri-tips, we're going to season the inside with an injection. Now these Creekstone Primes have good fat content for sure, but it never hurts to add some extra moisture and some extra flavor from the inside out. With the end goal being a chopped beef sandwich here, I want a sweet barbecue flavor profile, so we're going to see that in the injection itself. So for the base, we're going to have 1 cup of beef stock here. And we're gonna add to that some barbecue sauce. So this is the Smoke on Wheels Kansas City Bourbon Barbecue Bootleg. 2 tablespoons, just to add a little bit of sweetness. This also has some great umami to it. It's got Dr. Pepper in it, some soy sauce, lots of good stuff. Also going to add a bit of heat with the Flay Volcano. So this is a smoky red chili sauce. Think kind of like Chipotle's in adobo. So just a little bit of heat. And finally, I'm gonna get about 2 teaspoons here of the Butcher House brine. So this just kind of gives us our flavor base. Some salt, some sugar, some garlic, some onion. So we'll give this a good shake just to make sure that we dissolve everything. It's all evenly incorporated. Before we start injecting, I'm gonna pour off half of this, or about half a cup, to include in our wrap later. The other half will inject into the tri-tip. Those specific measurements are perfect for doing a single tri-tip, so I'm just gonna double that for our 2 tri-tips we're cooking today. All right, so we're going to fill up the pistol grip injector here, and just like we always do with any piece of meat when we're injecting, what we want to try and accomplish here is working in a grid pattern. So we're going to hit this every couple of inches, just adding some liquid in each spot. You should see it pump up. It'll start to come back out just a little bit, totally fine. And that's how we know that we're getting all that flavor and moisture added to the inside of these roasts. And for the most part, it's gonna tell you just how much it can handle. So if you pump and you keep pumping and it starts to come back out, it means it's time to move on. Luckily, we kind of have that fat cap to hold things in on the bottom side, so these will hold a decent amount of injection. All right, so once those are injected, just gonna kind of roll these around in that injection that's on the board. This will give us a binder on the outside for our rub to stick to. So for our rubs today, we're gonna be using the Bovine Bold by Plowboys, just one of my favorite beef barbecue rubs. It's a little bit finer in consistency, so I'm gonna put it down first because on top of that, we're gonna add some extra texture and depth of flavor with the Cattleman's Grill Smoky Chipotle. And this is a coffee-based steak rub, great for beef. So you're gonna have some turbinado sugar in here with the ground coffee, with the chipotles, lots of earthy flavors. And as this slow smokes, that turbinado sugar starts to caramelize on the surface, and it's gonna give us this beautiful dark bark. Same thing on the other tri-tip here, just a base layer of our Bovine Bold. Great barbecue flavors, and then that celery seed kind of thing going on. And then the chunky, smoky chipotle on top. This we want to set up just a little bit before we flip them over and do the fat cap side. So once this is kind of appearing moist on the surface should look a little bit wet. You can flip these over. And remember, we've got all these crevices to work with here on the fat cap to really work our seasoning down into. All those little nooks and crannies, extra texture is a great thing. And let's just kind of mop up the board here. No rub left behind. All right. Well, the Kamado is sitting at about 250 degrees now. That's where we're gonna be cooking today. I've got the slow roller set up, so we're ready for that indirect smoke. I'm just gonna add a chunk or two of hickory wood before we get going. Pop the top off here real quick. We've added some fresh charcoal to our already very hot charcoal down there. We're gonna nestle just a little bit of that hickory wood in. So we wanna make sure that we can get some ignition here. See a little flame. Make sure that we're starting to burn some of that smoke cleanly. There we go. And we'll put it back together. All right, so we're gonna go fat side down just to give us a little thermal barrier from any heat coming off of that plate there. Plenty of room for the smoke to roll around our tri-tips. Well, we're about 2.5 hours into the cook now. Our tri-tips are looking beautiful. Fantastic bark formed on the outside, soaked up lots of that hickory smoke as well as that charcoal smoke. Now we're gonna be wrapping it up and adding back some of those flavors from the injection. Smells incredible in here. I mean, look at the color we're getting on those tri-tips. Really beautiful. Oh yeah. Fat's just been dripping down, hitting the top of the slow roller there and coming back up in the form of flavor. So we're gonna take these over and get them wrapped up in foil. All right, so we're gonna place this down on a couple of sheets foil. Just checking the internal temperature for those of you that are interested. It's pretty similar to when you're doing a brisket. We're at about 165. Not that that's super important. We're really looking at the color. That's how we're judging that we want to wrap this at this point. But 165, roughly a good spot to do your wrapping. Now remember, we've got that liquid from the injection that we saved back. We're gonna add about a half cup of that into the wrap. So now we get the chance to really braise this beef in this flavorful liquid. We're gonna wrap this up super tight so that those juices are just braising over the top of that tri-tip as it continues to release juice and fat, and it's all gonna be in there together, developing flavor. All right, back to the grill. All right, so we'll check on these again in about an hour just to see where the temp is at. All right, guys, so this has been almost another 2 hours, so about 4.5 hours all day. And our internal temperature is really climbing up to where we want it. What's important to note is, much like brisket, when we kind of probe at this thing, there shouldn't be much resistance. This should kind of be softened up and tenderized. If we go into this deepest part here, 210 degrees on the dot. So that's what we're going for. I'm gonna leave this open here in the grill for just a little bit longer. We'll kind of form up some of that bark on the surface once again. We don't want to lose all our juices though, so we'll make some little boats here. And let's just give this another 30 minutes or so to kind of crisp up on the tops. Yep, we've kind of barked back up on the outside. Still got all the juices underneath. I'm gonna do a really just quick kind of rest, tinting the foil. We'll let those juices kind of redistribute just a little bit. But this isn't the most important step in the world when you're gonna be chopping or shredding a piece of meat. So keep that in mind. You don't have to rest this for an hour or anything. We're gonna be incorporating all those juices from the foil into the chopped meat. So if one piece is a little bit drier at the end, but we toss it through the sauce, it doesn't really matter in the end. All right, so we're gonna start getting into our tri-tip here. Oh man, just super tender. In fact, I wonder if we treat this kind of like a brisket. Wow, that's really juicy still. I mean, if we cut this thing kind of like a slice of brisket, I'm not exactly using the right knife for slicing here, but man, it's hanging, right? It's dangling. Even a nice thick slice. It's still got all that fat running through there. That's reminds you of the point meat. But essentially what we're gonna do for these sandwiches is just to do a chopped beef. So here on the ends, man, it just wants to shred apart. It's so tender at this point. And we haven't even worked any of the juices or fat back in from the foil yet, but that is incredibly juicy. Honestly, a surprise to me the first time I cooked a tri-tip this way. So once we get that back on the pan, we can kind of take some of those juices, some of that fat, put it right back over the top, and work that into the beef. Wow. We'll grab a real slicer here just so you guys can see some of these slices if you wanted to serve this like sliced brisket. That's just hanging. Yeah. Whew, it's too hot to do that. That's a bad decision. Almost entirely broken down, just barely holding together. We even got some goodies left in here. That's some of that fat cap left behind. Let's see how it tastes just straight out of the grill. We're gonna get some of that bark and then some of the juiciness. Oh. We got the crunch back on the outside after wrapping it, which is great. Man, savory, beefy. There's just this touch of sweetness, which I think we get out of that smoky chipotle seasoning because of the turbinado sugar. And of course, out of that Smoke on Wheels barbecue sauce that we injected it with. I mean, it's flavorful all the way through. But honestly, the thing that stands out to me is the smoke. Great smoke flavor coming off the Kamado. And it gave us that great bark as well. What I want to do now is toss up some of this meat and a little bit more of that Smoke on Wheels barbecue sauce and build a little sandwich. So we'll just sauce a portion of it now for our sandwiches. Not too heavy. Just a light drizzle. All right. A generous drizzle. This step is optional. This is a fantastic barbecue sauce, especially for beef. But we already know this stuff's great without it. All right, so we're gonna throw some onions down on the bun. A nice fresh bite from the onion. Oh, man. Fatty, smoky beef on top. We'll do a few of these spicy dill pickles on top. That acidity really cut through the fattiness and the sweetness. That's it. Simple. I'd be hard pressed to believe it's not brisket. It's not brisket, but it tastes like brisket. It's crazy. One of my favorite grilled roasts just became one of my favorite smoked roasts in recent history, and I'm super glad that I could share it with you guys today. I'm telling you, tacos are up next. I see breakfast tacos in our future. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out allthingsbbq.com for all of the products featured in today's video. If you enjoyed the recipe, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to allthingsbbq.com/thesauce. All Things Barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.